Let's quickly take a look again at the problems of metaphysics, and in particular, let's focus on the problems that our pre-Socratic philosophers are addressing, our original scientists are addressing, because remember, scientists, philosophers, too wrapped up in this, involved in the same kind of stuff. And the first problem that it seems that they're worried about is the problem of ontology, or some problems of ontology. That is, what are the basic components of the universe, or the cosmos? What, remember, ontology is the study of being, the study of existence. What is the basis of existence? What are the basic kinds of things that exist? And one view that people take is a view that's sometimes called materialism, sometimes it's called physicalism, and it's the view that everything that exists is a physical object. You're a physical object, I'm a physical object, the desk, the computer, the ocean, the sky, the world, it's all a physical object. And one kind of physicalism or materialism is known as monism. You might say it's monistic materialism or physicalism. That is, everything is composed of a single type of substance. And when we look back at our Milesians, Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes, this looks like it was exactly their view. They had some different views on what the basic substance was, the basic kind of thing that exists, but nonetheless there was one, and it explained everything in the universe. Now, by contrast, some of their successors followed what we might call pluralism, is that there are a bunch of different kinds of things. You heard when we were talking about the opposites, we were talking about earth, air, wind, fire, those kinds of things. And there's a group of philosophers called the atomists, a few names. We're not going to spend time in this course, we're not going to spend time this semester at least on the atomists. It's not neutrons, protons, and electrons, not that kind of atom, but they did have an idea that matter was composed of these little indivisible things, and they were made up of earth, air, wind, and fire, depending on who you were. Now, by contrast, to physicalism, there's a view, idealism. Physicalism, that everything exists is a physical object. Idealism is that the only things that really exist are abstract entities, thoughts, numbers, properties, like the number 4, being a triangle, my pain, my thinking about stuff. And group that we have not spent any time on, but a group that was kind of significant in that, in propounding this kind of view, were the Pythagoreans. And it kind of turned into a religion. Pythagoreans should ring a bell. Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem, in a right triangle, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the hypotenuse and a and b are the other two sides of the triangle. Well, Pythagoras actually expressed opinions about ontology, and it turned, to some extent, it almost turned into a religious kind of cult that he propounded. But some philosophers we are going to look at who were idealists or the two we're going to look at, they're known as the Eleatics, that is, they're from Elia in Italy, namely Parmenides and Zeno. And we're going to see Parmenides and Zeno, really, Parmenides in particular, very heavily influences Plato, and it's really once we get up to Socrates and Plato that we're going to recognize something in philosophy that begins to look like what we talk about in philosophy today. Now, one of the problems that's being addressed by our philosophers, our scientists, our original scientists, how did the cosmos come into being? And we see the Milesians' answer was, it didn't come into being, matter was already there, or matter brought itself into existence, not quite clear. And they were also addressing the question, why are the events in the cosmos regular and orderly? That is, why do they follow regular patterns? Another question in the realm of ontology, one that's being addressed by our pre-Socratic philosophers, has to do with permanence and change. How do we explain change? Things seem to be changing all the time. If things are changing all the time, what are the real things? What remain over time? And we're going to see this is something that our next philosopher, Heraclitus, will be focusing in on very, very, very critically. Then raises the question, what really exists? And finally raises questions about things that over time, things are becoming. What does that mean? And you're going to see that this affects their views on truth. And to some extent, when you look at metaphysics, especially at ontology in general, truth is an ontological concept. It's how the world, in fact, is. When you utter something that's true, you're uttering something that correctly describes the world.